Thank you so much for your time. Ola Kritram, which we started off just around December. The motivation is the same, that AI is changing the world. Our mission at Ola Electric is to really make India a global EV hub. Every chip in the world passes through India. We have decided to build our own chip. Making a chip is a moonshot. My mother, when we launched Ola in Ludhiana, she said, "Beta, kaun use karega tumhare yahan pe taxi?"
Hello, or I should say Ola, that is Spanish for hello. The word has also become a synonym for affordable taxi rides in India. Bhavish Aggarwal founded Ola in 2010, a couple of years after graduating from IIT Bombay. Today, the Ludhiana lad is one of the youngest billionaires of the country and a poster boy for India's successful startup ecosystem. So what started off as a call taxi company, Ola today is a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. And not many people are aware that Ola is not just a car company, but also the fourth largest electric vehicle company in the world outside China. More recently, it expanded into artificial intelligence. Krutrim, which is Sanskrit for artificial, was launched in December 2023. It already has a functional chat GPT. And Krutrim now plans to design AI chips and build cloud platform. Bhavish is with us today to talk about his company's past, present, and future. We will also ask him about his views on Indian EV and ride-hailing market. Bhavish, welcome to our show at 4 Parliament Street.
Vijay sir, thank you so much for having me. It's a very unique setting for me. I'm very excited about this conversation and look forward to it.
And we are also very curious about you and your journey, your professional journey. You started off from IIT.
Yes.
You did not qualify for IIT. You went to Kota. It doesn't say a lot about Kota's education because you didn't qualify. But then you went back home to Ludhiana. You studied hard, and then you ranked 23 in India. And then you went to IIT Bombay, did computer science, and then worked for Microsoft for a couple of years.
I worked at Microsoft.
And then suddenly you got this idea कि चलो एक Ola बनाते हैं.
Well, life was, on hindsight, it looks very interesting. But like you said, sir, I grew up in Ludhiana to doctor parents. So I was not from a business family. But my parents were all, like all middle class parents, they want to focus the kid on studies. So they made sure that I was focused on studies. I was a little bit of a rebel since childhood. So they packed me off to Kota. Kota was this up and coming place then that for IIT coaching, you go to Kota. And I think the place is great, but I was first time out of home, so I had a lot of fun in Kota. 2 years, I didn't get through IIT then. Then I came back to Ludhiana, locked myself in a room, studied hard. And, I think a lot of basic foundational life lessons I learned in that process. When you put your mind to something, you can do it. And getting 23rd rank was a good achievement. Then I came to IIT Bombay. And IIT Bombay was another new world completely because for a small town boy from Ludhiana to go to Bombay, get exposed to such a world of ideas and best of best peers from around the country. Yeah, so that was a very exciting phase of education. And then when I started working, I had a choice: should I go into further studies, PhD, etc. And my DNA is a very technology DNA. So I was quite I was very keenly considering a career in technology in a PhD track. So maybe being a professor somewhere. So thankfully that didn't happen. So I worked for Microsoft for 2 years here in Bangalore. And then after that, I felt that, Hindi mein kehte hain, andar se awaaz thi ke I can contribute something to this growing journey of India. In 2010 or so, that's when India's story was just starting to get exciting. And I was a young kid, 24-year-old, I had nothing to lose. I was not married, my parents were well settled. So I said, let me give it a shot. And then I started Ola Cabs in 2010. And it's been quite an interesting ride, pun intended.
So the Ola is similar to Uber. Uber already existed in the US and Western world. But there was a difference between what you created in India. How was that different?
So Uber's journey started, I think, in 2009 in the US. So in 2010, when I started, Uber was still a very early concept in the US. And they were not there here in India. In India, they came in 2013. We had already by then spent 3 years in the Indian market. So when we started off, we looked at Uber, and we were quite inspired by what they were doing using phones, apps and all. But we didn't start with an app. We started with a call center, and the call center was me because it was a bootstrapped startup. So, but the only difference, that those days we used to have these radio taxis, Meru and all of these. The difference between my model and those were I didn't own the cars. It was an aggregated fleet, but a call center and a website. The app came much later. So it started like that, and it started with out-of-city rides going from here to Agra or from Mumbai to Pune. And then slowly we added within the city, and the business organically grew from there. And then around the time when Uber entered India, we started to really deploy technology. That's the time when, if you remember, pre-4G, but 3G had taken off, and mobile phones, smartphones were becoming more prevalent. And to run a service like Ola or Uber now, today we take it for granted, but 10 years ago, GPS was not a granted thing, or a GPS phone and tracking things on. It was not a given. So that was high tech back then, and that's how we started deploying technology. And then we took that whole ride-sharing model much deeper into India. We customized it for Indian realities in a much deeper way. For example, in those days, one would think that taxis will only be relevant for 5-7 cities in India. Then we took it to 200 cities. Then one would have thought auto rickshaws will be replaced by taxis. We took it into auto rickshaws. Then we took it into two-wheelers and beyond. So we did a lot of localizations to this whole ride-sharing model, which allowed us to be in the lead all the time.
When you look back at the Ola journey, actually, I think Ola was like a turning point in terms of a societal kind of change that came in, right? It just became easier, safer, more accountability came in. And it was actually kind of liberating, and I think Ola kind of started that journey. What do you think about that?
Now, firstly, thank you so much for acknowledging that. Not many people recognize that 10 saal, because we can see every day the challenges, but a 10-year change in how we live sometimes is overlooked, right? So no, I really appreciate your comments on this, and I also agree with that. And not just Ola, this industry, the broader gig economy industry brought this change in urban life. We made services more accessible, and cost also came down. I'll tell you an anecdote actually. My mother in Ludhiana, when we launched Ola in Ludhiana, she said, "Beta, kaun use karega tumhare yahan pe taxi?" Because taxis were not a thing in India back then. Only in big urban metros you had some radio taxis at small scale. Costly tha, book karna padta tha, safe nahi tha utna. Now you can track and everything. So my mother said, "Beta, kaun use karega tumhara?" And then after, मैंने कहा मम्मी आप अभी देखते हैं 2-3 महीने. Then after 3 months I called her back, and she was using Ola to go shopping for sabjis. And we used to have a driver at home, and the driver had left the job, and he had become an Ola driver. So it was a twin impact.
So in terms of actually safety for women particularly, and it just made a huge difference.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. And safety remains a constant focus. Safety is such a thing that you can never finish it. You always have to be on a improvement treadmill. So, for example, we've launched many safety features along the years. We have this feature which we call Guardian, where actually we have an AI watching over you if you're on some areas on routes which are typically late night airport runs or whatever. So we will actually see if there's any deviations. We will call it out. So we continuously keep focusing on improving safety. And the whole industry has to do a lot more in that direction.
Like you said, Ola, you started with Ola cabs, and most people associate Ola only with cabs, but you're much more than that. You are now into AI. Yes. You are also into EV. Yes. You are the fourth largest, excluding China. Yeah. Tell us about that journey.
Sure, sir. So, when I became an entrepreneur, one doesn't know the driving motivation unless you get a little more seasoned, right? So now I've been an entrepreneur 14 years. So now over the last few years, I've realized that my own motivation, as well as what Ola Group stands for, is really, using technology to drive this whole journey of India towards a developed country. And that's our unique strength, and that's what our unique DNA and skill set is. We can bring technology, execution at scale, and talent together to create future business models. So we started with ride sharing. Then about 4-5 years ago, we set up Ola Electric, because while building ride sharing, we had also realized that there is another big revolution to be built in the field of clean energy, especially around automotive. And back then, 2018, 2019, EVs were not hot. Tesla was also going through its worst slump. If you remember, this was their time when their mass market car, the Model 3, was struggling. So it was the worst period for starting an EV company, and that's when we started EVs, because being a technologist, when I looked at the problem statement in more detail, it was clear that EVs is the future. The only question was when, how long will it take, etc. And again, India was not doing anything in EVs, and but India's demographics, India's population scale, India's challenges at the macroeconomic level with energy imports, etc., need a local solution towards energy transition and electrification, and that's what we then built with EVs. And I'll talk more as we go along in the conversation. So that was the second company we built in the group. First was Ola Consumer, which is the company in which the ride-hailing business is part of, Ola Electric. And then the third most recent one is Kritrim, Ola Kritrim, which we started off just around December, so about 8 months ago. And even there, the motivation is the same, that AI is changing the world. AI is a new technology. We are in the early days of this technology. In fact, AI is a discontinuity in the broader computing tech world that has been built over the last 20 years. And this discontinuity gives a new entrant like us an opportunity to create a new paradigm. And when you bring an India lens to it also, we in India, again, given the scale, given the journey that India is on, we need to build our own paradigms of the future of compute. And again, in deeper conversation, I'd love to share that. But so today, in summary, Ola is a group of 3 companies. Each of these 3 are in very diverse domains: consumer tech, energy and electric vehicles, and AI and computing.
So Bhavish, 2 questions rolled into one. The first one is, just last week, you announced a trial production at the company's battery cell gigawatt factory in Tamil Nadu. Yes. So how much investments have we committed, and what are the investment plans for the future for the ultimate 100 gigawatt hour capacity by 2030?
Now, when you look at the global scale of cell production, the whole world produces about, I think now, 2000 gigawatt hour. That's the installed capacity in the world. Almost 90% is in China. US is scaling up its energy production with its IRA Act. Europe is trying to attract European as well as other companies, including Chinese, to build in Europe. And as India is an important pole in this future multipolar ecosystem, India needs to have its own cell supply chain. Now, the government came up with recognizing this overall strategic landscape. The government came up with the PLI scheme for cell manufacturing. We were the biggest awardee of the PLI for cell manufacturing. We got a total of 20 gigawatt hour awarded by the government. Out of that 20, phase 1 for us is 5 gigawatt hour, out of which we've already deployed almost half the capital for 5 gigawatt hour. So phase 1A, which is 1.5 gigawatt hour, is already commissioned. The remaining 3.5 will be commissioned by early to mid next year. But the capital is broadly more than half deployed for phase 1. We deployed it from our equity as well as some project finance from public sector banks in India. And then at the IPO, which we did a couple of weeks back, part of the use of proceeds is for expansion from 5 to 10 gigawatt hour. So over the next 3 years, we would be expanding this 5 to 20 gigawatt hour, which is our allocation under PLI scheme.
Could you quantify the investments?
Sure. So in terms of what we have already deployed, you can say about couple of $100 million is already deployed or will be deployed in the near term for the current work in progress. You can call the CWIP, capital work in progress, is about a couple of $100 million. And then for the remaining up to 5 gigawatt hour, we might deploy another couple of $100 million. Like I said, half is done, half will be done. And then going from 5 to 10, it'll be about $300 million or so. And then going up to 20. So the rule of thumb is roughly every gigawatt hour takes about $50 to $70 million, or about 400 to 600 crores.
Since the listing of Ola Electric, the share prices have almost doubled, but but concerns on profitability still remains. The losses for FY24 have widened 1,500 odd crores. So, what is your profitability roadmap for Ola Electric? When do you break even, and when does the company start making profits?
No, very relevant question. This is on the mind of many investors. And we just had our first quarterly earnings call also on 14th August. So it was quite a busy week for us. 9th listing, 14th earnings call, and 15th this annual event. So in our earnings call, we actually showed our results in two segments. We broke up our business into two segments, the automotive segment and the cell segment. Now both are in very different stages of evolution, and that's why we wanted to give the street more information to analyze our performance. So if you look at our automotive segment, the automotive segment in Q1 was at an EBITDA almost break even. It was negative 30 crores or so. And that also because of a one-time reversal we had to pay for a SOP change in the government for PLI accruals. So if that had not been there, we would have actually been EBITDA zero. So that means our automotive business is already EBITDA break even in EVs, which many people were not very clear about the automotive EV business model, and we have shown that even with fast growth, even with investing into penetration, you can improve margins. Now there is a roadmap to profitability from EBITDA to PAT. Now we have 2 or 3 strategies which we are continuing to execute on, which will deliver improving margins over the subsequent quarters. Firstly, with increasing volumes in manufacturing businesses, you have operating leverage. So your fixed costs don't go up. The factory I've already built for a higher scale. The people costs, engineering costs, etc., all are built for a higher scale. Now, as I'm increasing my volumes, and just in Q1, my year-on-year growth was 32%. Q2, again, the volumes are public every month with Vahan portal, so you can see the volume growth over last year. So as volumes are growing, the margins are improving because costs are not growing with it. So that's one theme on the path to profitability. Second theme is, as we continue to do more vertical integration in EVs, EV supply chains are very different from ICE. So hence, as a strategy, we did much more vertical integration of manufacturing and engineering. And as we continue down that path, we further see margin expansion because instead of buying from a global supplier, we are producing ourselves and hence saving the 20-30% margin for that component that supplier would be charging us. And the centerpiece of that is the cell. The cell is the costliest thing that goes in the vehicle. There's a duty that you also pay if you bring it into India. Now, as our cell production goes into our own products by early next year, there'll be a very sizable margin expansion because of that also. So this is the roadmap. We've not put a timeline to it, but thematically, the strategic themes are operating leverage with volume expansion and vertical integration continuing to increase gross margin expansion.
Last week we saw your electric bikes. So is electric cars the next? Last year you did mention about Ola Electric planning electric cars. But have you set that program or so the why? Or if not, then how soon do we get to see the electric cars from your stable?
See, our mission at Ola Electric is to really make India a global EV hub. And I want to actually unpack that for all of you and your viewers a little bit because I really believe in it. So India is roughly 20% of the world's population. Our generation's biggest challenge around the world is to build a sustainable future in terms of climate change. The world cannot achieve it without India because India is 20% of the world's population. India is 20% of the world's growth already with 7% growth. As we increase our growth, India will be a higher percentage of global growth. So India needs to build a sustainable paradigm of energy and automotive. The global solution for sustainability is luxury cars, luxury EVs. That's what the large global EV companies in the West are doing. That's not relevant for India. India is two-wheelers, three-wheelers, maybe small cars. This is the majority of transport in India. And it's not just this is not just the Indian paradigm. This is the global South paradigm. Indonesia, Vietnam, Africa, South America, even parts of Europe, Eastern Europe, even mainstream, mainland Europe. India is going to be India will have to invent an EV paradigm for itself and an energy transition paradigm for itself. And that's what Ola Electric is looking to do, build the products that Indians need. And those are by vast majority two-wheelers, three-wheelers, maybe small cars in the future. But we started this journey with two-wheelers. Within two-wheelers, scooters. And you saw us build a portfolio of scooters and get very large market share. The next phase of our journey is motorbikes, and we are very strongly focused on taking the frontier of electrification to the motorbikes now, building a credible set of products, building credible, exciting products for the consumers, and building the foundational technology which enables all of this, which is the cell, the motor, the software, all of that. Now, once we do this, we will go into three-wheelers, etc. We've been public about that. We're not doing it right now. And then in the long term, if we have strong fundamentals on supply chain, the cell, which is a common platform across two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, we could sell our cell to other companies, or we could expand into future products which are not in our roadmap right now. We are very strongly focused on two-wheelers, but as we grow, we will add new product lines.
Is the electric car off the table right now?
Yeah, we are not working on it right now. It's like I said, our vision is to build products relevant for India and build technologies to enable those products at scale. And we're going in a sequence: two-wheelers and then other products.
In switching gears to Ola Cabs, in 2019 you peaked to 1 billion rides per year. Now it has come down to around by 20-30% this year. So we'd like to know about its performance for the company. How is it performing? When do you expect it to turn profitable? And also there talks about listing Ola Cabs.
Yeah.
So you can throw light on that.
Sure. So this data that you reference is not my data. I don't know, it's more public speculation. But our business is, obviously COVID was a dip in the overall transport industry. Since COVID, now we've recovered fully in the last couple of years. We are at all-time highs as a company and as an industry, the overall ride-sharing industry. So volumes are highest ever. We've expanded into new cities. We've scaled up our two-wheeler service. We've scaled up our three-wheeler service. So in that sense, the scale of the business is doing very well. Our mobility business in itself is very profitable. Even when we had maybe late last year showcased our FY23 results, when we had filed them in ROC, we had showcased that our EBITDA profitability had continued to improve, and the mobility business in itself is fairly profitable. In that company, when you look at the public financials, it's more the consolidated company financials. There are three segments in that. There is our mobility business, there is our financial services business, and there is our commerce business, which is a new business we've started with ONDC. Now, we are investing into the commerce part of it, but the other two businesses make money. And overall, that company is growing well. We haven't publicly commented on a timeline to IPO, but you will, it'll be there somewhere next year.
You've announced plans to build India's first AI chips by 2026, so congratulations about that. I wanted to ask you, considering that you would be taking on deep-pocketed rivals now, the likes of NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, Apple, and these are well-established players, what are your specific plans on building the first made-in-India AI chip? What kind of investments would go into it? Where would these be manufactured? What kind of capacities are you looking at? And more importantly, what would be the application for these chips? Would they be used within the Ola universe of offerings, your Ola electric scooters and Roadster series of bikes? Or are you also looking at, perhaps supplying these chips to other Indian EV players and global brands as well?
Again, let me set some context for Kritrim for your viewers. The reason we set up Kritrim in late last year, about 7-8 months ago, was there's a global technology transition happening with AI. And AI is a very important technology of the future. And we in India need to lead this journey. But if you look at the current state, I think we are still adopters of somebody else's technology paradigms, especially in the digital world. If I give you some interesting themes, right? India is the largest country in the world by population. We are one of the biggest users of mobile data. We produce 20% of the world's digital data. Because हम लोग ही इतने सारे हैं और we are also younger population, so we also are more producers of data versus more aged population. But our data is not owned by us. Our data is owned by technology platforms. It's not even stored in India. It's stored outside India. And it's processed over there into AI. What is AI? AI is processed data. It's processed into AI and brought back into India and sold to us in dollars, right? Now, remove the industry and AI and all, ये हमारे साथ पहले हो चुका है. So we don't want a repeat of this, right? And I'm a firm believer in private enterprise through the power of innovation, changing the trajectory of industries. Government supports and government provides a platform, government provides an enabling framework like they've done in EVs and energy and all. But fundamentally, private enterprise and innovators have to do their bit. And that's where AI provides us that discontinuity in the technology run to come in with a new paradigm. Now, and that's what we at Kritrim want to do. So if you look at the future of compute, we want to build India stack, leveraging some of India's strengths. Now, what are India's strengths? India has the largest data in the world, but we are not using that data to build Indian products. We want to do that. So one of the things in Kritrim is to build AI models on Indian data, which is more attuned to Indian use cases, Indian paradigms. So we launched our first model late last year, the Kritrim 7 billion parameter model. It's done well as a first model. People at that time were comparing it to GPT-4, and GPT-4 tak pahunchne mein hame 2-3 saal lagenge, right? But it's a first step in that direction. Then India has the largest developer population in the world. India has, maybe 20 million developers and IT services professionals. India has the largest IT services professionals population in the world. But we don't have the largest product companies in the world. Why is that? If you look at the cost structure of a developer, and I've been all my businesses are in the software world. So we are big customers for these cloud companies like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform. They are charging again in dollars and a very exorbitant price which Indian developers can't pay. Now, hence the second layer of the Kritrim stack, first is AI models for India. Second layer is a cloud platform for India, which Indian developers can use more relevant cost structures for India and more relevant APIs and services for India. And they can use to build their own products. And in that layer, we've already announced many services. Our Maps product is in that layer. Developers are using our Maps product at a much lower cost, much more relevant data set versus Google Maps. We've launched some AI services on 15th August. So that's in the layer of cloud. Then the third layer is the silicon layer. Again, a unique irony, in the like we say, every diamond passes through Surat. Every chip in the world passes through India, not physically, but design-wise. Every chip has some design happening in India, but we have no Indian chip. We have the largest number of silicon designers in the world in India, chip designers in the world, but there is no Indian chip. It's quite ironical, right? Largest data, but no Indian AI. Largest developers, but no Indian cloud. Largest silicon designers, but no Indian chip, right? So hence, we have decided to build our own chip. And the chip will be an AI chip as well as a general purpose CPU. It will be two different chips. Making a chip is a moonshot. So it is a moonshot. I called it a moonshot on that event. But we want to go for it. It is a risky endeavor. But we believe we can do it. We have the technology strength. We have built a very strong team. Again, leveraging India's strength of talent. We've built a very strong team. An advantage of our business model would be it's a vertically integrated business model. We are making our own AI on our own cloud, on our own chip. Unlike NVIDIA, which needs to sell chips to others, we will be using our own chip in our own workloads. So in that sense, we will not have the burden of making sure it is working on the CUDA software, etc., because it's for our vertical integration in the beginning. Eventually, we will be offering our chips to other players who want to buy it, whether for their vehicles, whether for their own clouds, whether for their own applications, whatever, right? So that's the journey, that's the philosophy. It is a moonshot. 2026, the first Bodhi 1 comes out. 2028, Bodhi 2 comes out. You asked some deeper questions on where we will manufacture the chip. So we will not be setting up a fab. We will work with the global foundries like Taiwan ecosystem or the Korean ecosystem or even the American ecosystem and figure out the right partner. We are in conversations. We haven't finalized yet. Hopefully somebody puts up a cutting edge fab in India and we'll be happy to use it.
Why is it so difficult to make a chip and what are the challenges?
On the design side, the challenges is firstly, it's very talent intense. So you need high quality of talent. Then you need a lot of ecosystem support in terms of tools. Many of these tools are costly. Many of these tools require, again, expertise, talent to use. then you need a lot of deep testing. Again, fundamentally the answer is talent.
I think many Indians will be offended if we told them that we lack talent.
Actually, not at all. India has all the talent, but they're not in Indian companies. Right? So Intel's biggest office outside of the US, I think, is in India. NVIDIA has a huge presence in India. Qualcomm has a huge presence in India. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just leveraging Indian talent. Right? So my message is not at all that we lack. We actually have all the talent. The biggest, like I said in my opening remarks, we have the largest silicon designer base in the world, but they're not working on an Indian chip. So my job is actually just to get them together. I don't know how to design a chip. Making a chip, design of the chip is fairly costly. That's the other challenge. It requires talent, it requires capital, and it requires a certain, traditionally Indian companies are not very R&D centric. We are very shy of investing into R&D. We understand investing into manufacturing capacities, we understand investing into distribution, but we don't fully, as an ecosystem, understand R&D investments. So that's why some of these investments, while in absolute it's not big for Indian groups, but it's a little bit of an unknown, right? So people hesitate from doing R&D and technology investments.
Earlier this year in February, Kritrim's AI chatbot drew quite a flag from users over untrained and somewhat inaccurate results. Have those initial glitches been overcome? And also, could you please share some insights into how widely are Kritrim's offerings being adopted by the user and developer communities in India?
Sure. So on the first one, if you compare us to a GPT-4, we will be short. It's a 7 billion parameter model versus GPT-4 is a trillion parameter model. So it's like आप स्कूटर को देख के बोलोगे ये उड़ता क्यों नहीं है, right? वो नहीं उड़ेगा, वो स्कूटर है, right? And we're very clear. But if you compare it to a Llama 2, which was the state of the art when we launched it, it'll perform better. And we published those performance results. But in India, sometimes the general public conversation on technology is not nuanced enough. So we get flack for being an early not adopter, but early producer of these technologies. That's okay. That's par for course. Hopefully our journey educates the overall commentariat about how technology development happens. So the Kritrim first model, in that sense, if you look at any benchmarks, if you look at its comparison to its peer model, which is a 7 billion parameter model, it will be best in class, especially for Indian languages and Indian context. Right? We are working on a future model which will be bigger. That you should compare with a Llama 3 400 billion parameter model, which is a state of the art today, or a Mixtral 7x22, or a bigger one, or a GPT-4, or a Cloud 3.5, or whatever. That will come out next year from us. So that's the first part of your question. Does that answer the first part of your question? Yeah. So the second part of your question was scale of usage. See, our Kritrim chatbot gets good usage. I don't want to share numbers today, but we've got millions of users of that platform. The second offering from Kritrim is the cloud platform. The cloud platform has also really taken off in the last 2-3 months. It's a very new offering. Only about 2-3 months back we launched it. We have had, like we shared in our 15th August event, 250 billion API calls already on that. We've had 25,000 plus developers use it now actively. These are active developer users. We have so many now services available. 15th August we launched many new services, and it's free till Diwali, right? So we're seeing very high usage. It's just growing like every day right now. Yeah.
भविश 2 साल पहले एक वीडियो वायरल हुआ, ओला स्कूटर में आग लग गई. लोगों ने इस स्कूटर के फ्यूचर पे क्वेश्चन उठाना स्टार्ट कर दिया था. आपने 1400 स्कूटर मेरे ख्याल से रिकॉल भी किए. वहाँ से बाउंस बैक कैसे किया? प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन में चेंज किया, मार्केटिंग स्ट्रेटजी बदली कस्टमर को जीतने के लिए वापस से?
देखिए, वो एक अनफॉर्चुनेट इंसिडेंट था, एंड हमारे ऊपर लोगों की नज़र ज़्यादा रहती है तो हमारा वो एक इंसिडेंट काफ़ी वायरल हो गया, जबकि बाकियों के भी व्हीकल्स में इंसिडेंट हुए, हमसे ज़्यादा हुए हैं. हमारा एक ही वो इंसिडेंट हुआ है, उसके बाद कोई ऐसा मेजर इंसिडेंट हुआ नहीं है. एंड हमने क्या किया, क्योंकि हम बहुत कॉन्फिडेंट हैं हमारी टेक्नोलॉजी पे और हमारी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस पे, तो देयर वाज नो फंडामेंटल इशू विद आइदर द प्रोडक्ट और आवर टेक्नोलॉजी और आवर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. The government came up with new guidelines after that incident and after such other incidents also, and we were actually we were already compliant with more than half of those government guidelines. We were the only one compliant, And then we were the first ones to comply with the remaining and get certified. First ones in the industry. And that's why you see consumer confidence बढ़ा ही है. हमारा market share उसका proof है. हमारा subsequent launches आए हैं और products आए हैं, हमने technology को better ही किया है. हमारा compliance with government हमेशा top notch रहा है. हमारा compliance with any localization criteria हमेशा top notch रहा है. So in that sense, हमारा जो manufacturing strength है, technology strength है, it was already strong, it has only strengthened. It was a one-off incident. It has happened with other manufacturers. We got the, what do you call it, the tough end of the stick, or
short end
of the stick, because we are the early movers in technology. But if you look at India में study नहीं हुई है, but globally studies हुई हैं. Actually, ICE vehicles are more prone to fire incidents than EV vehicles, a well-engineered EV vehicle. अगर आप लो क्वालिटी ईवी बनाएंगे, बाहर से माल लाके यहाँ पे सिर्फ असेंबल करेंगे, लो क्वालिटी सेल यूज़ करेंगे, तो रिस्क ज़्यादा रहेगा. एंड अदरवाइज हाई क्वालिटी ईवी इज मच बेटर इन सेफ्टी देन अ आइस व्हीकल.
For the layman, ICE and
ICE is internal combustion engine or petrol vehicles or diesel vehicles or CNG vehicles.
You once said not so long ago, and it made huge headlines, that Tesla is for the West, Ola is for the rest. The government is, it's keen to attract more global names such as Tesla and others to build manufacturing bases in India. So what is your opinion on that? And should the government do so? And in that case, what would it mean for local manufacturers?
I am all for the government getting global investment into India. I think it is what the country needs. And the ecosystem, including my company, will benefit from it because it will raise the bar on expertise, on excellence, on talent, everything, right? More suppliers will develop, more talent will develop, more manufacturing ecosystem will develop. So whoever can be brought to invest into India absolutely should be brought to invest into India. When I say Tesla for the West, Ola for the rest, it actually is like a way to bring our mission to life, that in this journey of sustainability and climate change technologies, the world needs India. The world needs India to develop solutions for itself. The world cannot achieve this sustainable future by selling luxury cars to itself, to the West. The world needs India to develop a paradigm for the mass, the Aam Aadmi. And the Indian paradigm will not just be relevant for India, it will be relevant for the 7 billion people in the world who don't buy luxury vehicles, who don't buy big cars, right? 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, small cars. The technology needed to make these things work. That is the Indian paradigm, which will be relevant across the global south. So that's what means Tesla for the West, Ola for the rest.
Are you in favor of government then extending the fiscal concessions that companies like Tesla have been demanding from India for setting
Absolutely. up? Absolutely. I've publicly said, and I'm saying it on your forum again, that it is very important for India to attract all kind of investment, especially world-leading companies. And Tesla is a best-in-class company. The more companies like these invest into India, the better it is for India in a broad sense, as well as the industry.
जब भी कोई नई टेक्नोलॉजी आती है तो उसके बाद एक डिबेट शुरू हो जाती है कि इससे जॉब ख़त्म होंगे और कई तरह की प्रॉब्लम्स और अनरेस्ट एक उससे होता है क्रिएट. अब ये एआई आ गया है मार्केट में और जब अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट की क्राइसिस हम ऑलरेडी फेस कर रहे हैं तो उसमें क्या एआई के बाद फिर ये डिबेट शुरू हो गई है कि इससे और जॉब जाएंगे. तो एक तो आपका उस पर क्या ओपिनियन है. दूसरा इसी से जुड़ा हुआ है कि ये जो जॉब क्रिएशन का मामला है इसमें प्राइवेट सेक्टर को कितनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेनी चाहिए.
बहुत ही अच्छा डिबेट है ये ऑन बोथ टॉपिक्स, प्रोडक्टिविटी एंड प्राइवेट सेक्टर, एंड मैं दोनों को एड्रेस करूँगा. सी, टेक्नोलॉजी ब्रिंग्स विद इट प्रोडक्टिविटी, एंड प्रोडक्टिविटी लीड्स टू एनहांस्ड आउटकम पर पर्सन, राइट. ये फियर हमेशा रहता है जब भी कोई न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी आती है कि जॉब्स जाएंगी. बट अगर आप एविडेंस देखिए, इंडिया का खुद का एविडेंस देखिए, इंडिया में आईटी बूम ने कितनी जॉब्स क्रिएट करी. जबकि जब कंप्यूटर आ रहे थे इंडिया में तो डर था कि जॉब चली जाएगी, राइट. बट so much of a economic change was brought in by the IT boom, which leveraged this whole productivity tool called the computer, and then beyond that also after that. Now AI is a similar tool. AI is not going to replace a human, right? Maybe that future is a few decades out, right? So I think we don't need to get anxious about that future right now. We need to, as a country, see that AI is going to amplify productivity. If we don't get onto the bandwagon, we will be left behind. And it's a globalized world, and even though trade is kind of slowing down globally, but it's still a globalized world, especially in the digital world. So the way forward, in my view, is to become experts in future technology. Future technologies bring with it jobs of the future, supply chains of the future. And if we are global leaders, we are the fastest adopting market of future technologies. Jobs of the future will be built in India. Supply chains of the future will be built in India. Now, this is the only way, in my view. If we focus on protecting the past, you remain uncompetitive. On the private sector, I actually believe private sector has to do the bulk of the job creation. Government's job is to create the enabling environment, create the fundamentals, help correct imbalances wherever they are, be it trade imbalances, etc. But and incentivize wherever it needs to be incentivized, like the PLI schemes, I believe are a big shot in the arm or a tailwind for Indian manufacturing industry. What the government is doing with the ELI schemes, employment-linked incentives, I think will also encourage private industry. But fundamentally, private sector has to step up and do more.
Is the government doing enough to create that ecosystem for private sector to?
I actually would, because I am not in the government, so I want to put this limelight on ourselves. Like, is the private sector doing enough? Right? I think we all can do more, and I'm in the same bucket. We all need to do more. Right. Yeah.
So you started this End of Ice campaign by 2025. End of Ice Age 2025. So do you still see that happening? Because I'm asking you because last fiscal electric vehicle two-wheelers were sold around 1.8 crore. The ICE were 1.8 crore and ICE two-wheelers were around 10 lakh units.
EVs
were So do you still believe that this end of ICE thing will happen? And secondly, do you think that the EVs EV makers have enough capacity to do that?
बहुत ही अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. आप अगर देखो ना at a macro level, end ice age is a given. Only question is when. And in a very simple way, I'll explain it to you all and your viewers. ICE is a very is a inflationary paradigm on two fronts. Vehicle का cost बढ़ता रहता है क्योंकि emissions compliance बढ़ता जाता है. BS4 था, फिर BS6 आया, कभी next level आएगा. Right? So for more and more emissions compliance, you need to add stuff in the vehicle and your cost only goes up. Hence today also versus 5 years ago, the same vehicle which was 60,000 rupees अब 1 लाख रुपए की है. कुछ बदला नहीं है. 100 cc था तब, अभी भी 100 cc है. Right? In fact, 100 cc 20 साल से वो 100 cc बाइक ही है, उसका दाम 30,000 रुपए से 1 लाख रुपए हो गया. Right? The cc has not changed. ऊपर की cc आई हैं वो और महंगी आई हैं. So the vehicle product cost only goes up because of emissions compliance. The fuel cost also goes up because of macroeconomic factors. The fuel, the petroleum cost is also going up. Whereas EVs are completely different. The vehicle cost keeps coming down because the battery is a technology component and its cost is reducing. In the past 10 years, it has come down to 1/10 already. And in the next 5-7 years, it will further reduce to half. Right? So the battery cost curves only come down. So the EV vehicles only become more affordable. Second, the fuel cost is only going down because fuel cost is electricity. Electricity with more and more renewable, the cost of generation is coming down. Now with the government's and the Prime Minister's scheme of rooftop solar, where the Prime Minister has a vision to make power free for homes and power free for EVs also. ये उन्होंने कहा है कि घर में power free होएगा, आप solar rooftop से पैसा बनाएंगे और आप अपनी EV को free में charge करेंगे. Right? This is his vision. Once that comes true, power cost for EVs or fuel cost will be zero. So it's a no-brainer. It is an absolute no-brainer. Question is, how long will it take? Now, on your statistics, 20 million two-wheelers are sold in India every year, 1.8 crore roughly. EVs out of that in two-wheelers are 7.5% last month. July ka data hai. 3 years ago when we started, this was 1%. It's a very fast pace of growth actually. Right? आजकल ट्विटर का ज़माना है तो हमें थोड़ा फास्ट रिजल्ट्स चाहिए. बट 3 years में 1% से 8% गया है. उसमें भी अगर आप थोड़ा सर्जिकल नाइफ से देखेंगे तो स्कूटर्स में ही सारा एक्शन रहा है. स्कूटर्स में 21% था जुलाई में, from 1% 3 years ago, 1-2% 3 years ago. So in 3 years, this has been the journey. So think of another 3 years. It's only going to amplify. It's not going to slow down. And in these 3 years, government subsidy has come down from 60,000 rupees per product to 10,000 rupees a product. The FAME subsidy. Now we are bringing motorbikes where EV penetration is very early. Same journey will happen there. So that's the macro and the micro context on endiceage. It's a given. Question is when and who will sutradhar kaun hoga.
Rajiv Bajaj had once said, champions eat oats. We referred to Ola, Ether, Talk, and Smarty. And then you had responded by saying you put ice cubes to be precise, in your drinks, right? So today when you see all this traditional ice, two-wheel manufacturers accelerating, expanding, in the EV space and EV portfolios. So you feel a sense of satisfaction that you justifies your stand on EV. That is one. Second is, does it bother you, the stiff competition from the established manufacturers in EV sector?
See, now we are a public company. So now we are literally an open book, right? The incumbents have, in a very tepid way, entered into the EV world. Thoda sa half-heartedly, if I can say. They have products, they are discounting their products, and you can compare my EBITDA is almost neutral on EVs. And उनका आप देखिए street से पूछिए उनका EBITDA कितना है. So who is able to sell with the market share I have and the bottom line I have versus compare their business, EV businesses to this. So they are far behind. I don't feel a sense of satisfaction in this. I feel that, again, our mission is to make India a global EV hub. And the sooner the incumbents realize that EV is the future, and the sooner they commit holistically and wholeheartedly, it will be great for the Indian ecosystem and great for me, great for my company, because we are the leaders. The more they resist this change, the more they publicly say, okay, oh, EVs, we are not sure, etc., the more they are, I think, harming their own companies and their own shareholders. Because it'll delay their transition to EVs, it'll delay India's transition to EVs. Well, I will do my bit. My goal is not to be 70% market share. My goal is to make India a full EV nation, right? And if others can take part in that, nothing like it, right? And but the more they delay the inevitable, the more their shareholders will suffer.
This is about that Ola Maps, and Map My India has said that you have stolen stuff from here and there, and your Ola Map service is it's not really great. And they're saying that it takes such a it takes an investment of many years, big funding to achieve something what you're claiming to have achieved. So how do you respond to that?
See, I said that day also, I think empty vessels make most sound. जो खोखले होते हैं उनसे ज़्यादा आवाज़ निकलती है. तो ये लोग suddenly कहीं से उठ गए, right? Ola Electric is not even in the maps business, right? They in the run up to Ola Electric's IPO, they wanted to just गंगा में हाथ थोड़े गीले करने थे उनको, तो कुछ बोल दिया. हमने भी उनको लीगल नोटिस दे दिया, उनका जवाब ही नहीं आया अभी तक, right? So I would actually ask them कि ठीक है, substantiate your claims, right? Let's fight this. We are very clear. We have built our own mapping technology. We acquired a company. We have a lot of data on mapping because we've been running a ride-sharing business for so long. We have a lot of data. We have our own tech. Now our mapping is being used by so many customers. थोड़ा उनको चुभ रहे होगा तभी इतनी आवाज़ निकल रही है उनकी, right? So maybe their customers are moving to us because our product is better. So I would actually like you to ask them, what is next? You made all this noise. Do you want to follow up on it or follow through on it? Right? वो नहीं करेंगे because there's no what do you call credibility in their claims.
I think we're running out of time, so the last question. Mr. Narayan Murthy very famously said 70-hour week should become the norm. Most of the journalists here are used to 70 hours a week. The younger generation, however, is not. They have this concept of work-life balance. The Gen Z does not want to work 70 hours. What's your take on it?
My take, sir, is I think what people seek, and even the youngsters seek, is purpose and fulfillment, right? Not, we call it work-life balance. My generation, or even the younger generation, I don't know what they call it, Gen Alpha or whatever, Gen Z, Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha bhi hai.
Gen Alpha is the next one.
The next one, yeah. So, it comes across as work-life balance, but I think what everybody is seeking for is purpose and fulfillment. And I personally believe there can be no bigger purpose than contributing to our country's resurgence, right? That's my purpose, and I've tried to create that purpose in my companies and in my ecosystem. And the young people really respond to that very positively. And फिर वो ना 70 घंटे हो, 100 घंटे हो, nobody is counting the hours. When your life is driven by purpose, when your life is driven by fulfillment, and building the country, and it's not in a political sense. It's in a deeply personal sense, that you are doing your bit to contribute towards the India of our dreams, right? And if that kind of a hawa can be built, and it is there, and youngsters actually want to contribute. So the more that is there, actually you feel people not just 70, 80, 90, 100, वो अपने आप से काम करते हैं. You don't even need to put a time limit to it.
In your company, they do, the young people, they do.
Young people have a different way of working. Once you connect with them on purpose, they need their space, they need their time to explore, but it's all as part of a journey towards contributing towards the nation.
I'm sure you work 90 hours a week.
I work, period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.